Okay, so right here is a $600 gaming PC I recently put together. This PC is targeting 1080p 144Hz gaming and even some 1440p gaming as well in some titles. Also, this entire PC build is based off brand new parts, so there will be links in the description below if you're looking to build this PC yourself. So to start off with the CPU, we have the Ryzen 5 5600. This is a 6-core 12-thread processor that is still very good for gaming. You can still pair the CPU with a wide range of GPUs, where even things like the RTX 4070 or 7700 XT can still work together. Since AM5 is becoming more prominent, AM4 still makes a lot of sense for these budget builds. And you can even upgrade to the 5700 X3D to get some extra performance as prices go down. To pair with the CPU, we have the Asus B450MA Mark II. This is going for about $80 on Amazon and is a decent option which will support our CPU. Although the features aren't the greatest, it will work well with this build. You may notice that the variant in this video is actually the older Mark I variant. However, in terms of layout and performance, they are nearly identical. So next we will install the RAM. The one I have linked below is the Team Group Vulcan Z 16GB DDR4 3200 MHz kit for $30. This is a solid kit that's worked well for me in the past, and there will be no issues here as well. The one I have in this build is actually the T-Force Delta, as the Vulcan kit is currently in another build, but performance will be the exact same, and the only real difference is the RGB colors on top. There are also a bunch of different options for RAM at this price, so just get any kit that has similar specs. Next we have the SSD. I went with the MSI Spatium M450 1TB for $45. This is an NVMe SSD that will give us lots of space for games and has pretty good speeds. Surprisingly enough, this is actually my very first time using an M.2 drive, and it makes everything so much easier. Being able to plug it in and screw it into place is pretty much game changing. So now with all that set up, we are now ready to get into the case. So for this build, I went with the Lian Li A3M ATX. This is a very nice case that has adequate cooling along with pretty nice aesthetics. It also is a decently small case for the size, which is becoming more important nowadays. Honestly, the entire experience of building in this case was really amazing, and I would highly recommend considering this for any of your future builds. Now we have to install our power supply, where we went with the MSI Mag A650GL. This is a modular power supply which makes cable management so much easier, which is why I opted for this unit. It also has decent wattage for future upgrades and an 80+ gold rating. You guys might have noticed that this is the 750 watt version, and the only reason why I have this is because this is the one that I had on hand, but this won't change any of the performance, and the A650GL is the exact same when it comes to the physical build. So the only wires we will need to attach is the 24-pin motherboard wire, the 8-pin CPU wire, and one PCIe wire. And this is the major benefit of having a modular power supply, because we can just pick and choose which wires we need for our build. And after all those are connected, we can finally install the GPU. I went for the RX 6600, which you can get for $190. This is a solid 1080p graphics card that has 8GB of VRAM and can play 1080p titles with no issues. And even in certain titles, we can actually get decent 1440p performance as well. This specific Asus model looks really clean, especially with the aesthetic we were going for in this build, and performance is solid as well. So after plugging in the PCIe power connector, we can put all the side panels back on, and this $600 gaming PC is now complete. Overall, I am super happy with how this build turned out, and my favorite part by far is this case. I think it looks really good, it has a lot of great features, and it's easy to work with as well. The total for this build specifically is $617, and you can definitely save even more money if you stay patient and deal hunt. But now let's get into the fun part, which are the benchmarks. So all of these benchmarks you're about to see will be in 1080p, and in Fortnite with performance mode, far view distance, low textures, and high meshes, we were easily able to get over 200 FPS. We did see some spikes throughout, but it's quite an easy fix by just capping our FPS. But even with a 240Hz monitor, we would easily be able to match it. Overall, this is a very solid experience. As for CSGO 2 on high settings, performance is around 180 to 200 FPS, and by changing to lower settings and adding proper optimizations, we can easily get this to the 240 FPS range. And for titles like CS2, this is the type of performance that we should expect. Same story here for Overwatch 2, where we are still getting over 200 FPS even during high intensity fights. Since this game is quite easy to run, we can probably even push for higher limits of around 300 FPS. For Rainbow Six Siege on very high settings, we are also able to get around the 200 FPS range easily throughout the benchmark. So the story here for this PC is that any kind of esports titles will run great at really good FPS and high FPS. When it comes to a more high intensity game, Starfield on low settings actually ran decent at around 100 FPS. We are in the starting scene where it's a little bit easier to run compared to later in the game, but I don't think performance will drop too much even during more intense gameplay. I would even say that pushing this to medium settings is possible, which would make the experience a lot better. GTA 5, while not really that intense of a game, still ran at around 150 FPS on very high settings. We did see some FPS drops, but with a few settings changes, we can probably stabilize that out for more consistent gameplay. Warzone at basic settings with FSR 3 surprisingly ran really bad at only about 60 FPS. This game has always been a tough one to run, and this gameplay still proves it to be true. With lower settings, we can probably push this a lot further, but overall a pretty disappointing experience. And lastly, with Marvel Rivals, which is a much newer game, at high settings we are getting about 70 FPS. Although this game is very similar to Overwatch, the game is much harder to run. Overall though, a pretty good gaming experience. So guys, if you're looking to build this PC yourself, there will be links in the description below where you can purchase all of these parts. But with that, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.